So for step 2 of the typist design assignment, what we want to do is take one of the two letter combinations that we made in the last step and use the principles of repetition, rotation, radiation, and concentricity. Sorry, that's a word I have problems with. If you want to look at examples of what we're talking about, you can go to this URL, http://fontfeed.com, and the rest of the URL. Or you can just take a look at what we've got here as some examples. And so what we've done is we've taken a two-letter combination and then we've copied and either rotated or reflected or radiated or used concentricity to create these pattern motifs. And so let's walk through doing that now. So if you haven't already, you need to open up the mini pattern 2 or the step 2 template. And so here we're going to see 3 boxes. They'll be empty for you where we're going to put our mini pattern that we create. And so I've already created a mini pattern, and notice the pattern is the same in all 3 boxes. Sometimes I have students who make things more difficult than they need to be by creating multiple ones to mat and turn in. And so it is perfectly fine for you to go and try out different combinations and everything, but you don't have to turn in more than one. And so I played around with the examples that I showed you in the last tutorial, and what I decided is that this two-letter combination is the one that I wanted to use in step 2. And so if you remember, I had you unite them before. We finished and you saved it and closed it. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to copy this and we're going to put it into this document. So if you just Control C and then Control V into this document, I made a few copies down here of this. And so just to remind you, to make a quick and easy copy, you're going to hold down on Alt, your cursor will change to those 2 circles, and you're going to drag. And so then what I did is I played around with the idea of reflection and rotation. And so if we take one of these copies, right click, transform, and then go to reflect, it'll give you a preview of how you're reflecting. And so if we wanted to rotate, we could go ahead and click on OK here, and we could put them together like this. What I did though is instead of reflecting on that axis, I reflected on the vertical axis. You can click on OK. And then once again, you need to have your shape welded together. I'm going to zoom in here. So I have the back sides touching. We could also have it flush against the other, whichever you'd like. Go back to what I had before, so it kind of matches. And now I'm going to select both of these and do the same thing and go to transform and reflect, only I'm going to choose the opposite. Problem here is I didn't copy it beforehand, but the nice thing is I can go ahead and make a copy when I'm in that dialog box. And so I just want to choose 2 of these now. Okay. Let me go back. I'm going to choose those 2. I'm going to go ahead and unite them. Transform, reflect. Oh, still missed that step. Make a copy before you right click and reflect. Click on OK. And now I can move this around easier. And you can make this match up and fit together however you want. I just found it was going to be easier for it to fit in the box if I did this. Okay, so once you have created something that you like, this pattern that you like, what you're going to do next is apply some special effects to your box. And so I'm going to click back over and have you look at the rubric for this. And so we're on the mini pattern step right now. And so what you need to do here is follow the directions for the mini pattern. So we just did that. All three should be the same. And so in all three boxes we have the same shape. Next, we're going to apply a gradient to either the stroke or the background. And then we're going to apply a pattern to either the stroke or the background. And we have already used the Pathfinder panel to combine the letters, but we can apply some effects then as well, so like a drop shadow or something like that. So each of these are going to be a little bit different. What we want to do is create a background, and that is no more difficult than switching to your rectangle tool and making a box, changing the color of that box. And so, of course, my swatches aren't pulled up here. And then selecting it and sending it to the back. So range, send to the back. So now we can do some of those things that we were supposed to. Because we have these welded together or united with the Pathfinder tool, we're able to change the stroke around all of them. And so I'm going to go in and add a stroke. And if we're thinking about what colors to use, that's fine. Adjust the stroke so it's a little bit thicker so you can kind of tell that you've got a color there. And then it said apply a gradient. So I'm going to click on my background and apply a gradient to my background. And so what I want is my gradient tool, and I want my gradient palette, and we're going to choose a gradient to start off with. We've already got one we can apply there. So if you want to adjust your gradient, you can. And that would be enough for a gradient, but if you want to make your own, I would encourage you to do that. You can change this from linear to radial, and you just want to make sure that you can tell that it's a gradient, which I think is kind of hard the way it is right now. Let's see. There we go. And in another one of your mini patterns, you're supposed to apply an actual pattern swatch. And so you can do that either to the inside of the pattern, or you could do that to the stroke around it. You just want to make sure that you have a stroke that's wide enough to be able to tell that that's what you've done. And so we're going to choose our stroke, swatch, and change that. This may not be the kind of pattern that you want to add to the outside of that though. But notice here, and I'm just going to copy this box, and I can always change what's in it. You start to see the stroke a lot better when it's on top of a background. That kind of helps explain why we have you use background. And so when it comes to the pattern, we just want to see you playing around with the use of pattern. We want to see you playing around with the use of gradient. You don't have to do all of those things on every single mini pattern. That would start to look obnoxious after a while. So let me just check and make sure that we've went through all the things that are on the rubric here. Apply pattern, do the stroke or background using Pathfinder. Oh, so if you want to add an effect, so since we have this welded together, we can come over here to our effects panel. I don't have that open right now. So let's go up to Window and down to Effects. Oh, we need our Appearance panel. Sorry. If you open your Appearance panel, Effects is down at the bottom. And so this is where you can go in and create a drop shadow if you want. Pardon me as I try to find that here. Okay, so it's under Stylize. And so if you want to make a drop shadow, I'd click on Preview. And just to warn you, when it comes to drop shadows, oftentimes they're too dark. And so what you want to do is lower the opacity. You just want there to be a hint of a drop shadow. You don't want it to be like really obnoxious. Click on OK. And so there's a drop shadow there. It's just kind of there. And if you want to go in and adjust it, you can always come back to the Appearance panel and click on Drop Shadow. And maybe we want this a little bit darker. Click on 40 instead. So now we can drag our background over and you see just kind of a drop shadow. And so once you have those mini patterns created, once again, save, make sure you have the correct file name, and make sure you've changed your name down here so that if when you print it, we can get it to the right person if it doesn't print during your hour. Okay. And so the next step is going to be taking this mini pattern and adding it to a full sheet. And so that will be in the next video. Thank you very much, guys.